much too hot to be cool.
Back to the scene. The basement's packed, but if you at the front door breaking backs, that's security, ensuring the best possible time for you.
From Atlanta,
where I keep my drawers.
it's the 9 Billion Names of Pod. Dan Bauman and Michael Reed. I'm Dan Bauman.
I'm Alexander Nevermind.
So, let's talk about some stuff.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah,
heavy sigh.
Yeah, so a little bit of little peek behind the curtain here at the old podcast. When we very often do 2-part episodes, and when we do, you hear a little tire screech, and hey, we ran out of time.
The wear and tear on my tires is brutal, man. It's brutal.
But normally when we do a 2-parter, we just talk for a long time and cut it up into 2 pieces so that you guys.
Because no one wants to listen to our mouths for like 2 hours straight.
Oh hell no, we don't even want to do that. And but for once we did that for the last 2 episodes, and we're going to wrap it up because it was so much. We're going to talk more about Prince, because it bears
and there's
continuing.
been some developments. There's been some developments.
Yeah, so we're about 2 weeks now out.
Yeah, we're about 2 weeks out from
his passing. And,
but I guess I kind of want to just pick right back up with the the chronology,
sure,
the discography, and the stories that go along with that. Some of the more, dicey, unsavory developments.
We're still in speculation. I mean,
there's some stuff we're in speculation, and some stuff we are not in speculation.
Yeah.
I've got some stuff I've got some opinions. I got opinions, Dan.
I'm not surprised.
I keep them in my drawers. When we parted company last time, we had wrapped up talking about the Gold Experience from 1995.
Okay.
And that was Prince's last attempt to, all right, I'm going to try to do a good, solid, new record for Warner Brothers.
Okay.
Because I've got to get out of this agreement. He already allowed the Black Album to come out to count against his albums that he owed. He already turned in a kind of a half-ass album called Come from 94, the year prior.
Yep.
And at the end of the Gold experience for Prince, he was like, fuck this. This is not working.
Right.
Warner Brothers can eat a dick. And somewhere around this time is when The Slave came out on the cheap.
Yeah.
And that's a rather charged thing to do for a black artist.
Oh, absolutely.
But true for everyone in the music industry. The old model was, we own your master recordings, we gave you an advance up front, and you will never recoup it because we keep charging you.
Yes.
For
the way record company, I mean, you know this as well as I do. The way record deal contracts have worked is since the dawn of
it's indentured servitude.
Really, you're given X amount of dollars, let's say $100,000, to make your record and promotion and blah blah blah, and then for every unit sold, you will
a pittance.
You will get 25 cents or so. Let's say
there's different rates.
Let's throw a number.
Well, the big thing is when CDs came out with a list price of like $25. Now, no one was paying it for the most part back then,
right?
But the royalty rate stayed the same.
Well, also you still owe that $100,000, and what you're paying them back comes out of your 25 cents is
right.
what it is.
Exactly.
That's the recoupment
model.
model.
You want to, hey, we did this great music video for you, and we're just going to add another $45,000 onto your, or $100,000 or whatever onto your tab.
Right. That's how
you will never, basically you work for the company store.
Exactly.
And, we'll keep you in your lifestyle so that you can, our PR will work, so you're riding around in limos and stuff, but you're paying for it, you're paying for it,
and
you'll
never get out.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why when I started my label, I did not go that route.
Right.
I did not seek to own anybody's stuff.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
I mean, if they want to sell it, then that's one thing. Some artists would be like, I don't give a crap. Here, buy this, and But Prince did his all of his, in my opinion, masterpieces were under Warner Brothers. Mm-hmm. And only recently, and this must, I don't know if it's Mo Austin. I don't know if he's still at Warner Brothers, but whoever's head of Warner Brothers right now must be sitting in a closet, wetting themselves with a gun in their mouth because. A couple years back, Prince re-signed with Warner Brothers.
That's right.
And released, I can't remember which album did he come in with. We'll get around to it. I have my notes here somewhere, which was the first Warner Brothers album. But essentially, along with that deal, the masters that Warner Brothers was holding reverted back to Prince. Now, obviously, they had no idea he was going to pass away.
Yeah.
Had they known, or, so now basically Warner Brothers is going to, now there's probably a deal in place to where the stuff has to come out through Warner, so they're going to get their bite out of it.
Yeah.
But there's definitely going to be deluxe editions of all the classics at the very least.
Sure.
Because during his heyday, 1999 was a double album. You could probably tack on a whole nother album just of the 12-inch mixes, the B-sides,
right.
Maybe some stuff from the vaults or whatever. There needs to be somebody to curate his vault, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But Warner Brothers, if they had still owned the masters when Prince died, they would have made a substantial amount of money, in addition to what they're already going to make for probably putting this stuff out.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Slave on the Cheek, and he puts out an album called Chaos and Disorder. Mm-hmm. Or rather, I say he goes into the vaults, scrapes up some whatever, calls it an album, and gives it to Warner Brothers, release that, and that counts against my total. I can't remember if it was a 10-album deal. I can't remember. It
had to have been something like that.
Well, he re-signed fairly recently to all this stuff happening. He had just signed like a $50 million or $100 million contract, and all of a sudden, within a couple of years, he was unhappy. I'm thinking, you've been with Warner since 78? Because the first album came out, I think, 78, 79, but he had been groomed for a while.
Okay.
They were letting him have some studio time and kind of get his vibe together. Because it's not like today where they seek out fully formed bands and bring them in and pop them right out on the charts. This time they
actually developed artists.
They develop. Oh yeah, that almost never happens anymore for record labels.
No, just not to go off on a tangent. Now they just take bands who have worked their whole for 10 years to get themselves established, and then just take money from them.
Right, exactly.
Put them out.
Or they have someone who sings really well. They want to partner them up with some producer and songwriters to put out something that doesn't reflect who they are. Like Pink's first album was nothing like her subsequent work. because like Christina Aguilera's first album was all teeny bopper bullshit, and then she came back with Dirty, which is more in line with what she wanted to do. Also successful.
Like a local Angie Aparo, if you know who he is.
I do.
He was local Atlanta cat, and he got a deal. I actually was fortunate enough to get tapped to audition for his band. I didn't get the gig because my bass teacher got the gig, which is kind of funny. It's like, why did you wait? You put me up against my teacher?
When I left you, I was but the learner.
Exactly.
Now I am. Oh, he got the gig.
He got
shit.
Damn. But he was a Americana folk kind of singer and songwriter kind of guy, and they were trying to make an alternative kind of thing out of it, and it didn't work. The songs were okay. He ended up selling a couple songs. Like he sold that song "Cry" to Faith Hill, and it became a hit. And that's what he's doing now.
And that's where the money is, quite frankly.
Oh yeah,
there are people out there that you have never heard of, that are infinitely richer than any of the rock stars that you're seeing out there because they get that publishing money.
Right.
And
like Linda Perry. Speaking of
exactly.
Pink.
She did what? She did
Four
Non
Non-Blondes.
Blondes and 2 solo records, and then she fucked off and just said, you know what? I'm not going to be out front anymore, and has made millions off of her songs.
Yeah,
wrote for Pink.
Wrote for Pink.
Wrote for basically everybody. And with Christina Aguilera, same thing again. So basically, Prince turns in Chaos and Disorder in 1996 to fulfill his, his
contract.
His contract. He still has a little more contract left to do, but as part of the negotiation, we enter 1990, the latter part of 1996, with the triple disc Emancipation.
Yes,
which is they finally worked out how he was going to exit Warner Brothers, and he went ahead and put out a triple CD called Emancipation. I haven't listened to it too much. I'll have to admit, right now we're going to get into the period where I may have listened to this album once. It's I'm very much a massive Prince fan from the beginning to about 95, 96.
Okay.
After that, it's diminishing returns, in my opinion, but also, as I got older, I didn't have the time to sit and obsess over every album.
Yeah.
This is more of a trend just in my general listening style.
Yes.
And just like, I'm not sitting in my room doing homework, listening to albums for 6 hours or whatever. I've got a life to do. I've got, I'm out of college. I'm out of high school. I'm living a life.
Yeah.
So we get Emancipation, 3 discs. Wow. Lots. A couple minor hits off of that. And this is where we get into the period in which pretty much went through until he passed away, where I think one of the good things that Warner Brothers did for him was to bring him in a bit. When Prince wanted to put out this triple crystal ball set in like 87, Warner went, easy now, let's make it a double, and we got the masterpiece Sign of Times.
Yeah.
Sign of the Times. Who knows, if they had said, sure, do it, it might have been a bloated affair. Like the Clash's Sandinista. I mean, good record, but you probably could have trimmed a half dozen songs out of
3
that.
albums, 3 record set is tough.
That's a lot. Well, if you're listening to it as one continuous experience, that's a lot to ask of people.
Exactly.
Now, of course, if you're a fanatic, I mean, I look back now, it's like, oh my God, if only that triple disc Sign of the Times was great, but how much greater would it have been? Maybe it would have been greater.
It might have been, like
it might have been a complete suckfest.
Yeah.
So, and that's one of the things where I'm kind of going between, same thing with writers, musicians. I want them to do what they want to do in the way they want to do it, but sometimes you need an editor / producer / somebody to kind of rein you in, to give you another perspective, to go, you're bloating.
Yeah.
You're saying something in a paragraph that needs half a sentence to get across. Why are you being so just out there with it? So, and of course we get he finally gets his 3 CD set out, Emancipation. It did okay.
Now, is this the Symbol years? Is this when the name change happens?
Let's see.
Are we there yet?
No. He has changed to the Symbol.
Right.
Oh, that's right. I didn't even mention that.
Yeah.
Yes, he is.
That was a big thing.
That was concurrent with the Slave.
Yes.
As part of a way to get out of to get out of his contract. And boy, did it ever kick up a lot of fuss for people in the press. Warner Brothers was distributing those little 3-inch hard shell floppies with font sets in there so that newspapers could actually put the symbol in there, you know. And some people didn't even bother with that. They just put the artist formerly known as Prince.
Yeah, TAFCAP.
TAFCAP, yeah, exactly, TAFCAP. And it's a cool symbol. I mean, that's, you know, I dig it. But I never stopped calling him Prince because, first of all, I'm never going to be hanging out with him or anybody he knows, so I don't have to worry about, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to call you. And he was in on it. People, in interviews, they would say, you know, they would mention his name, and he would just be like, whatever.
Well, here's the thing. It seems to me, of watching the few, you know, interview stuff that I've seen on the thing, is he did not take himself as seriously as people made him out to have taken himself.
Right.
Sometimes
they put it out as he was like, no, I must be called this, and I'm an artist. Blah, blah, blah. He was taking the piss half the time. He was serious about his freedom from Warner Brothers, but he knew the method that he was using to get it was perhaps a little out there.
Yeah.
And didn't, he never got upset with somebody if they, called him Prince. He might give him a side eye, but always.
Well, I heard a story a DJ was talking about. They said they got to go to one of those small club or house parties at his house, and they said, you know, the handlers were all like, you know, don't look him in the eye and don't do this, and, you know, sit quietly, this and that. And she said the first thing he did was he walked out. He said, they told you all not to talk to me, didn't they? So he's like, yeah, don't anybody that. And he just sat and played the piano and had a good time. Like, He was just a cool, fun guy.
One of the things that I thought was absolutely just it made me kind of tear up a little bit. The first Saturday after Prince passed away, SNL, I don't know if they were going to be on hiatus that time or whether they were going to do a rerun or whether they had a live show, but whatever they had planned, they canned it, and they did all Prince, the entire hour and a half.
Really?
Every musical performance he did, plus a couple of those Fred Armisen and Maya Rudolph, it's the Prince show!
Yeah.
You know, Prince wants you to say, you know,
yeah,
that kind of thing. And I'm watching at the end of it where they have him, you know, up there, you know, at the end where they all get on stage and talk, and during the closing credits, and he was just being him, doing his thing, you know, and it wasn't like, do not approach me, you know, that kind of thing. I can understand why his handlers would say that kind of stuff, because in a crowd of 100, you're going to get one or two fucking crazy motherfuckers.
Yeah.
So if you put everyone kind of on the, be on your best behavior, it might set the mood a little bit more towards not being a dick around.
I can see that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So Emancipation was 96, and he worked that for a couple of years, and then put out Crystal Ball. Now, this is not the Crystal Ball from the 80s. This was a rarity set that just happened to have the same name.
Okay.
And at the top of episode 2, we had a little sample of some of the spoken word bits out of his song Movie Star, which was included on there because D'Angelo, you know who D'Angelo is.
I know the name.
Yeah, the R&B singer. He comes in, blows everyone's mind, and then goes away for like a decade, and then comes back with another record a decade later. You know, he's like the opposite of Prince.
Yeah,
he's like, I'll do 9 songs every 7 to 10 years. Where Prince is like, I did 7 songs before breakfast, motherfucker.
And you ain't gonna hear 4 of them.
Right. And he pressured Prince to put. He's like, I want that, because he had heard it. It had been circulating on bootlegs. So Prince dove into the archives and put together Crystal Ball. Now, the problem with Crystal Ball was not in its content, it was in its delivery, in that people, it was distributed by Prince, by the company he set up to this was before MPG Music Club, but it's on the horizon.
Okay.
And people who had pre-ordered it at a premium price, mind you now, didn't get theirs sometimes until 3 months after it had been released to everybody else.
Really?
Yeah. It was a huge, just not... not handled well. You know, I remember I got mine right away, because I didn't pre-order. I was, I never pay full price for anything.
Yeah.
So I found a copy, and it's good. It has stuff all the way back from the 80s through the mid 90s. It's just basically he went into his archives and pulled up a bunch of stuff that he thought people might like,
Right.
and people liked it. It was good. And also in that same package was a new album called The Truth, which was an acoustic work.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And he packaged that all up together, and that did okay. That did okay. Then in 1999, he had a debt to pay. The last Warner Brothers album. Because he had already, like I said, the deal had already been worked out to how he was going to exit and what he still owed Warner Brothers, but he hadn't delivered yet. So in 1999, he put out, or Warner Brothers put out, The Vault, Old Friends for Sale, which kind of is a continuation of Crystal Ball in one way. And so, some of these are older songs, but he reworked them as new works and put them out. And that was 1999. Got that out of the way. But later in 1999, he decided to jump back into, like, all right, I'm an A-list artist. I'm doing some shit. I'm going to just go crazy. And he put out Rave Unto the Joy Fantastic.
Okay.
And he distributed it through Warner Brothers. And this was the last album where he was being called the Symbol.
Yep.
He was, after this, no more Symbol as his name. Now, he used it, obviously, forever.
Yeah.
That's his glyph. And it was kind of a return to form for him. It had a lot of guest artists named, like Gwen Stefani was on there.
Oh.
I mean, good on you.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told you my Gwen Stefani story. Have I?
Yes, you have. But, but reiterate.
She came into Phantom Sound and Vision while I was working there. But this is before Tragic Kingdom.
Yeah.
So it's just like, oh, wow, she's beautiful. And I went back to work. What are you going to do? And then months later, I'm looking at the TV going, oh, my gosh, that's that girl from
that band.
Because they were pushing their self-released second record because their first one didn't do too well. Their third one did, 1 or 2 billion copies.
Yeah, still selling today.
Oh, yeah. So, but she's on that record. And basically, 1999, he also did a pay-per-view event for the was that the year of the pay-per-view event? I think it was for 1999 for like Prince's New Year's Eve type thing.
Yeah.
And he released a new single called 1999 The New Master because at this point Warner Brothers still owed it, and he wasn't making the money. He was still getting his publishing and his other royalties, but he wasn't getting the physical sales money, and he wanted to make money off of his own song, so he re-recorded it. And it's okay. It's basically, he didn't try to exactly note for note recreate 1999, but it was close and it was okay. But then we start the new decade, or the new millennium, actually.
As a matter of fact.
But not until 2001, because between 1999 and 2001, at some point in there, he converted to be a Jehovah's Witness.
That's right, yeah.
And all of a sudden, put the 8 ball where it's sure to stick is out in the lyrics because, the sex done be mostly gone. It's more love. It's more
spiritual.
It's a little more spiritual. He put an album called The Rainbow Children. And this was the first thing that he put out under his new label called NPG Music Club, which is New Power Generation Music Club, which was something you subscribed to online. And the idea was every month you get new prints. Sometimes you did, sometimes you didn't. But there was stuff available. It was basically as close to getting open access to his vaults as he would allow. And that album was kind of not good.
Really?
I didn't care for it.
Okay.
I own it because I will own every Prince album because there's certain artists. I'll do a sidebar here, Your Honor. I acknowledge that Radiohead is a brilliant band doing masterful work, and I fucking can't stand any of it.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I don't get it. I don't like listening to it. The first 2 records I can get to, and maybe that's because they're a little more, they hew closer to basic song structure. After that, there's a few moments of, oh, that's an interesting sound or part. I don't get it. I don't understand it.
I'm right there with you.
But I acknowledge, like, what they're doing is definitely breaking ground. I get that. I just personally can't stand listening to it.
Yeah.
The new Radiohead, they just put out a new single, and I said, all right, I'm going to take another listen. No, it washed over me, left no residue, and there are other people out there that listen to it 100 times in a row. So with Prince, it's different in the sense that he is a genius, and some of his work I don't get. But I know his other shit is so fucking good that maybe I'm not ready for it yet. Mm-hmm. Maybe when I'm 65, I'll pull out the Rainbow Children and go, oh, God, I get it now. I'm ready for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to happen with Radiohead. But there are
certain
certain artists.
Know that, but
well, you know what? I have an interest in pursuing Prince again in later years to go back over stuff. Because for me, pretty much, like I said, 78 through 96 is 99% of the Prince I listen to.
Yeah.
The rest of the stuff, it just, and also because I'm a different person further along in my life and not in that obsessive music phase that I was in high school, college, and for about 10 years after.
I have a weird pattern of hating all the things I love later. Like, when I first heard things like Primus, I was like, this is noise and it's garbage and I hate it. And they become one of my favorite bands. And some things just strike you a certain way and you're done.
Yep. I almost returned China Crisis's album Diary of a Hollow Horse. And for some reason, I never ended up returning it. And I came back to it some years later. And it still, to this day, is one of my favorite fucking records ever. Yeah. So, sometimes an album comes out at the right time in history. Like if Michael Jackson's Thriller had come out 2 years earlier or 2 years later, it might have been an okay album, but not the hit that it was. It was the right album at the right time for the zeitgeist, but also there are albums that are at the right time for you personally.
Even more so, I think. I think it's even more personal than that. Yeah, I think, Thriller probably would have been a hit whenever it was released, but
but not the crazy phenomenon
right?
That sold
but I mean,
40 million
I
copies.
think that's 2 totally different things because I think you have to like Thriller has to hit you at the right time as well. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
like the culture, the culture had aligned to a point where the majority of people were like, "We are ready for Thriller." Now, like Purple Rain, we are ready for Purple Rain. Now is our time for Purple Rain. Purple Rain came out 10 years later. Still a good record, but maybe it wouldn't have hit the culture the same way, and it would have been an okay hit.
But I mean, there are people who today have discovered Purple Rain or Thriller or
because they're ready
and they found
there's 2 different things. There's your own personal development.
That's what I'm saying.
And then there's the culture in when it came out. Now obviously Purple Rain's going to be listened to by people that aren't even born yet that'll think it's the greatest thing
forever.
ever.
Yeah.
Because they're ready for it at that point in their personal development.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm thinking that also applies to me, where I was around when Rainbow Children came out. Didn't really care for it, but I did not sell my copy. No. I still have it, and I will never get rid of it because at some point, I keep saying, all this music listening and films that I've accumulated. When I retire, I'll have time finally to sit and read the books and listen to the albums and watch the films and stuff. And who knows, maybe Rainbow Children will end up being better than Sign of the Times for me or Parade. Who knows? I doubt it, but anyway. Getting back to the discography, after that, he put out, and this is something that blew my fucking mind. I only found out about it yesterday.
Okay.
In 2002, a year after Rainbow Children, he put out a live box set called One Night Alone. and it was pricey as fuck. And I bought it because it was a 3-disc set. It was 2 of a regular concert and then 1 of kind of a more acoustic piano-driven thing.
Okay.
And I had to have it because that bonus disc, that acoustic disc, had a version of The Ballad of Dorothy Parker,
Yep.
which is my favorite Prince song frickin' ever. Also had the Sometimes It Snows in April, which we used as the audio intro to the very first of the 3-parter of Prince.
Yep.
What I did not realize, and I only found this out yesterday, and I couldn't believe it, he also put out an album called One Night Alone, full stop.
Okay.
I just discovered an unknown Prince album to me. I thought One Night Alone Live was just, hey, I'm alone. One night live. Here's the box set. There was a studio album that came out concurrently with that, and I completely missed it.
That's strange for
I
you.
know. So I got my first taste of that's vault to me.
Yeah.
So
you have a new Prince album.
I have a new Prince album for me.
Yeah.
So, thumbs up. And that's the one that has... I'd heard he had done it live, but I didn't know he did a studio version of it. He did A Case of You by Joni Mitchell, who he's a huge fan, was a huge fan of Joni Mitchell. And that's another, come on, Joni, you don't have to do any more music. Just stay alive, please.
For a while.
For a while.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was just, holy crap. And that's unlike me because... I'm pretty much an obsessive Prince fan.
Right.
And suddenly an album that I didn't even know about coming out, which just goes to show you that after he was free from Warner Brothers, when he can just throw stuff out randomly, there's no sense to it. In my opinion, he just kind of an album here, I'm off 2 years, then I'm going to do 3 albums, and then here's a single. Maybe it'll show up on an album, maybe it won't. And it just got just made my head hurt trying to keep track of it all. And which I did for the most part because later on he collected up some of these singles, and we'll get to that. So in 2003, he did 2 new records, both of them instrumentals. Expectation and News.
Okay.
Northeast, West, South. 4 tracks. Track 1, North. Track, yeah. And again, good instrumental stuff, kind of like that Minneapolis Genius stuff that was released from stuff he did back before he was signed to Warner Brothers, but just not my particular, cup of tea. But then in 2004, he decided, all right, it's time to get back in the game, and he put out Musicology.
Yes.
And that's the tour we saw him on.
We saw him together here in Atlanta at Phillips Arena.
Yep. And he did something that was absolutely fucking genius. You thought he couldn't get any more genius.
Talk about gaming the system.
Oh, my God. He got his first #1 album in years. And how did he do it? Because
giving it away for free.
No, he did not give it away for free. Everybody who
from one perspective, from a certain point of view, he did.
From a certain point of view, you should not be tongue bathing your sister. He included with the cost of a ticket. You buy a ticket to his show because Prince can sell out anywhere, anytime.
Yes,
it's not. There were years where he didn't tour at all, or he just did I'll do a couple of his last gig here in Atlanta.
Yeah.
He wasn't on a huge swing all over the country and the world. He just said, and I'll do a couple nights in Atlanta, and would go and do it. And that's the way he's toured extensively in Europe. He didn't come over here as often as you would think he would.
Right.
But he gave away or included with the price of a ticket to his Musicology tour a copy of Musicology.
Yep.
So every concert ticket sold counted as 1 copy sold, and Billboard had no rules.
SoundScan.
There's no rules that says you couldn't do that.
There
are now. Yes, there are now. Because everyone was crying foul. It's hey, you guys were just angry because you didn't think of it first.
He got in that loophole quick.
It wasn't even I guess it was a loophole, but he created the loophole.
Exactly. Yeah.
It was just I'm doing this, and you know what? I should get a #1 album for it, and he did.
He sure did.
And
it's a good record too. It's got some really good stuff.
People who are waiting for When Doves Cry Part 2 don't. He never really came back. At some point, I don't remember when it was in history, but some company or wealthy individual offered him like $100 million to reform the Revolution and tour. And he went, no, I've already done that. I'm done with that. And at one point, at one point, I can go, good for you. Don't look back. At the point, I would really like to see that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like a sequel to The Breakfast Club. I never want it to happen, but I'd be curious if it did. You know what I mean? It's like it should never, ever exist.
Right.
But if it did exist, I would probably check it out out of curiosity. Morbid curiosity.
Well, that show was amazing, first of all. I mean, sidebar, I'm not the hugest fan of the sound in Phillips Arena because it's not designed for that.
Oh, you're the one person that thinks that way. Oh,
but
okay.
It was done in the round, and from what I remember, the stage was basically a big plus symbol, more or less.
No, it was the love symbol. It was Prince. That's his glyph.
Okay, that's right.
But it had little extensions out of it. But
so the band was like, it was in the round, so the band was on like each corner or section of it, and Prince just kind of walked around.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
My favorite part of that show was one of my favorite parts of any show I've ever seen, which was at a certain point, band gone. The band walks off. And up through the floor in the coolest, like custom-made chair with a mic stand built onto it is Prince. And it's a 360 spinning thing with an acoustic guitar, and played 30 minutes just acoustic.
And he did a medley of all
the stuff everybody wanted to hear. Doves Cry and Let's Go Crazy and all the Purple Rain stuff in 1999. And he was like, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you the way I want to give it to you, but here it is.
Yeah,
exactly. You want to hear this, and he didn't play all of it, blew bits and pieces.
Right. And we've talked about that, because when an artist gets to a point where they've been around for decades and have so much material and so much beloved material, you can't get to everything.
Yeah.
And on the other hand, you're still creating new music. I mean, the Stones, they'll put out a new album and tour, but they'll play one track off the new record.
Yeah, and they'll play Satisfaction.
And then they'll
Get
do
Off My
all the
Cloud,
hits. And if they're happy with that, fine. But as, I'm not a musician, you are, but in my head, as a creative type, oh my gosh, the same fucking song I've been doing since 1965?
Yeah.
Again, you got to balance it a bit. And sometimes they reinterpret it. So Prince didn't necessarily, he did it reinterpret. He did it acoustic, and he kind of did a little medley, give people a little touch and a little taste of stuff, which is fine. Most of the tracks that I wanted to hear, I did not hear because they weren't the big hits.
Yeah, and that's tough when you have an artist.
But I wasn't expecting it. See, that's the thing. I mean, for me, it's Ballad of Dorothy Parker. It's the material off of Parade that is not Kiss.
Right.
It's some of the deeper cuts on Sign of the Times. I'm not expecting,
There are Rush songs. I've seen Rush a million times, and there's some songs I've never seen them play live.
Yeah.
And like the one tour they did all of Moving Pictures, the entire Moving Pictures album, and
we are at Code Moving Pictures.
We are at Code Moving
Pictures.
And I was literally, I was going anyway, obviously, but I was going to see one song.
Like, I hear they're doing.
Well, they're doing a song called "The Camera Eye," which they've never done before, at least that I have never seen them do live. And it was the one song off, because they've played every other track on. There's only 7 songs on that record, but I was like, that's the one I want to see, and it was worth the whole thing. So it's hard when an artist such as, and Prince has way more stuff than Rush does.
Let's put it this way: he has more stuff in his vault than he released.
Oh yeah,
and
he released more than most artists did. I mean, he
even with Warner Brothers keeping their thumb down on his output. The reason why we have The Time, The Family, Madhouse, Vanity 6, Apollonia 6, stuff with Sheila E., Carmen Electra, Jill Jones. The reason we have all that stuff is because Prince had this music he wanted to be out there.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers, like, you can't release 2 albums in the same calendar year. You're going to, and 3 is ridiculous. Like, fine. He wrote the first 2 Time albums completely. And it's him. The only other person on those first 2 Time albums was Morris Day.
Yeah.
And he was singing exactly to Prince's instructions.
Yeah.
So essentially, those are really Prince fucking records, just with a different vocalist put on them. But it was done exactly the way that Prince wanted, because he had so much stuff he wanted to get out there. And his contract with Warner Brothers allowed him to put together other groups. and to shepherd them along. So we got all that kind of stuff.
Gee, Warner Brothers holding back an artist who wants to put out a lot of God, that could never happen twice.
What Prince should have known is that what Prince should have known is that, you know, talk to Frank, Prince, because this is how they do.
This is their MO.
It's like, you know, you could plead ignorance up until you did that re-sign in the 90s for, what, 50, 100 million.
Yeah.
You knew by that point what you were in for, but okay. It's like, I get it. You know, the creative type got to be creative. So after musicology in 2004, he just kind of did some slapdash stuff on the MPG Music Club. No official like records, and it was collected up into two releases called The Chocolate Invasion and The Slaughterhouse. And it was just tracks he put out on the MPG Music Club. Those were both Volume 1 and Volume 2 of the MPG Music Club output.
Right.
Collected them up. Then he came back in 2006 with 3121.
Okay.
And that relates to the apparently the release date in some way. I'm still unsure about what those numbers mean. But it had Black Sweat. Mm-hmm. Have you heard Black Sweat?
I think so.
About Black Sweat? You know.
I don't know.
Yeah, that's my Prince, everybody. And that'll be the end of that. So, but it was overtly sexual. It was overtly sexual, and it wasn't, you know, we can fuck until the dawn sexual, but it was sensuous. Let's put it as sensuous.
Okay.
And this was kind of a return for him because, you know, Jehovah's Witness, and he said in interviews like the sexuality and the spirituality are kind of dual, and they ebb and they flow back and forth. Right. And apparently the sexuality was flowing a bit more for this record. And it has a very cool black and white video that I'd have to look, but it looks like it was directed by Hype Williams, who does amazing stuff for music videos. And then the next year, he did Planet Earth, which kind of pissed some people off because he had signed a distribution deal, but in the UK, he gave it away for free with the paper. I think it was the Daily Mirror, or one of the papers over there. And this is a very, very significant record because guess who came back into the fold to do a little music on this record?
Who?
Wendy and Lisa.
Did they?
Yep. Yep. Now, there was some stuff after the Revolution broke up that they were on, but that was because it was already been recorded, and he was just putting it out there. But some of the stuff that they had contributed, he kind of erased or dialed it back. But this is the first, hey, let's do this. And he performed with them, I think at the Brit Awards one year. I can't remember what year it was, but there was Wendy and Lisa right on stage with them. So apparently, you know, fences mended, and you know, hurt feelings not so much anymore. And then in 2009, 2 years later, he put out a triple record. Well, kind of a triple record. It was 3 discs. The first one was called Lotus Flower, and the second one was called MPL Sound, which I think stands for Minneapolis Sound. Yeah. But then there was a third record in there that was a debut. I can't remember her name, but it was a record that he had shepherded from a female performer. Okay. Valletta, I can't remember. Completely inconsequential. Didn't go anywhere. The two, one was more acoustic, and the other one was more kind of rock pop oriented. So that's where we are there. And then in 2010, we got 2010, the album 20TEN. Okay. And this one was also included with a copy with the UK paper, the Daily Mirror. And in promoting that record, he did his first interview in the UK in 10 years. So that was like a big deal. The Mirror got the record and a Prince interview. Cool. Now, if I remember correctly, this is also the one that was the paper that was spying on people in England, and got shut down a couple years back because
was it the Daily Mail or Daily Mirror? I can't remember which one.
Oh, I'm pretty sure it's the Mirror.
Okay.
I think the Daily Mail
was a little more legit.
I think is it called the Daily Mail? I'm not.
There is a Daily Mail. I know that for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's the Mirror over there. That's the.
Well, it was Murdoch, wasn't it?
Yes.
Anyway.
Murdoch. Let's talk about what a shitbag that guy is. For those who don't know, Rupert Murdoch owns Fox News, and I'll just leave it at that. And then he went away and just didn't do any records for like 4 years. But came back with 2 records, Plectrum Electrum and Art Official Age. And the Plectrum Electrum was with his new backing band called Third Eye Girl. It's all female backing.
Cool.
Which is, they were competent musicians. I was not impressed at all.
Okay.
But that's just me. And not because they're girls, just because I didn't think they were competent musicians, period.
Right.
I mean, that was a rock album. And then he did one that's more R&B, and that's Artificial Age.
Okay.
And, he's still selling, 100,000-200,000 copies. He's the platinum albums are long gone by now.
Now, what year was that?
That's 2014.
You know what else he did in 2014, which I don't know if you knew. He made an appearance on the Zooey Deschanel show.
Yes.
New Girl.
Yep, I watched that.
Yes, as did I.
And it was
It
cool.
was great. It was really cool.
Because Prince doesn't get, guess who's now involved with this person, and they're off on the town getting drunk and doing dumb shit. All Prince's stuff was kept, I'm sure he had shenanigans, but we didn't find out about it because he came up in the non-obsessive paparazzi time, and by the time that arrived, he had his layers around him.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, some of the times were like, hey, we didn't get a Prince album for 2 years. This guy, he's at Paisley Park.
Yeah, you didn't get them, but they were made.
Oh, he was doing music and stuff, and that was his castle. I mean, he built that because he wanted to have a place where, hey, I think I'm going to do a show tonight. You just put it out there, and we'll let 100 people in. We'll do a show and have fun. Because there's like a little concert hall in Paisley Park, recording studio in Paisley Park, the big vault, Paisley Park. Yep. Everything was Paisley Park. So he didn't go quite, total Howard Hughes, where he hasn't been seen in 3 years, but he liked being home.
Yeah.
And when he went out, he went out. But that's why he did those kind of hit and run kind of tour situations where it's like, I'm going to do 4 dates. I'm going to leave the house, boom, 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 and then I'm back.
Yeah.
Because some of these, old guys that maybe aren't even making records anymore, that are just touring on the old hits, they got to go out for 9-10 months out of the year to make their nut for the year.
Yeah.
And being away and life on the road when you're 20 is awesome. When you're in your 60s or 70s,
it's tough.
Fucking A. That's why
in your 40s, it's tough.
Easy there. And then the following year, last year, we got 2 more Prince records, and Hit and Run Phase 1 and Hit and Run Phase 2. And Hit and Run Phase 2 is his last record. And that's one that has Baltimore on it, which was written in response to the death of Freddie Gray.
Right.
And one of the things we found out about Prince after he passed away, as part of his personality, but also as a tenet of his religion, you do good works, you do not let people know that you're doing them. If they find out on their own, fine, but you do not say, oh yeah, and I just gave 1,000 to, you don't do that. But as soon as Prince passed away, everyone piped up like, yeah, he gave, $2,000 to help bury this child that was murdered, and he gave $10,000 for this project, and he was just writing checks and checks and checks all over the place. So his philanthropy was insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even know the scope of it. I'm getting a feeling that
we might not.
We may never know. Well, it'll happen eventually, because now that there's, we have the second bookend on Prince's life. I'm sure there are books getting started right now where people obsessively going every year and every album of Prince's, output in life, and we'll find out all the stuff that they could, dig up.
Yeah.
Which, in a way, it's like, yeah, I'd like to hear what he was listening to, what he was doing from day to day, and kind of get a feel for what his personal mindset was when he wrote this song or this record. Sometimes it gets a little intrusive.
Right.
You got to weigh between knowing stuff to like, oh, that I know this about this important historical figure, this creative artist, and Yeah, I didn't need to know that. Like, yes, Benjamin Franklin discovered electricity, for lack of a better term, or a great invent. I don't need to know about his whores in France. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
he loved them whores in France. Oh, he loved the whores.
Yes.
So it's like, but anyway. So there we are. And
here we are.
And here we are talking about Prince. Now, I said there were some other things that have popped up that, or some thoughts I had in closing, in bringing this. Because quite frankly, if I wanted to spend about 6 months obsessively researching, I could come back and we could start talking for 40 episodes about nothing but Prince.
Yeah.
That probably would bore the shit out of you, and about, 9. Hey, not everyone's as big a Prince fan as I am. Actually, I'm really only an obsessive fan up until 96, and then it's kind of hit or miss. There are some people that are more obsessive about the newer stuff than the older stuff. So to each his own. One of the things I wanted to point out is that Prince definitely was highly sexual, but he kept the misogyny down for the most part.
Okay.
Now, there's some stuff in that 90s material where he embraced a little bit of rap in his music. And, yeah, it got a little...
Did it?
Yeah, it did. It did. I mean, Get Off had some pretty misogynistic bits in there. And there's some other stuff where... But it was never done out of a lack of respect. It was more like, I want mine, and come on, baby, that kind of thing. So, he never talked about, beating up a bitch or none of that shit.
Yeah,
it was just, it was misogynist in service of his highly spun up sex drive.
Right. And with a guy like him, I mean, you can almost extrapolate that not extrapolate. You just know that it was for the artistic sake of it. It wasn't. This
But for
is how
expression,
it
it's not like if you heard that Prince raped somebody, your first reaction would be like, no.
No. And when
no.
he, if he said terrible things in a song, with him, it's for the art of it. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not. That's what he believes. It's.
He was, and sometimes, authors do not get, for the most part, Chuck Palahniuk does not get, beat up about some of the way he writes certain characters. Why should artists, musicians, be beaten up for certain songs? Chuck is not every character he wrote in his book.
Right.
And every song is not the extension of that person. Sometimes it is. Sometimes it's very personal.
Right.
And other times it's a character. It's a situation. It's something that is so outside of my own sphere of what I am or what I do that I want to explore that as something else.
Yeah.
As
an exploration of these feelings.
Right. I mean, David Byrne is not a psycho killer.
No, qu'est-ce que c'est?
Yeah, I knew you were going to do that. Yeah, exactly. So, and musicians don't get that benefit of the doubt as much as perhaps writers do.
Right.
Because they go, of course not.
It's fiction.
Yeah, that's fiction. But problem is musicians, the first song on the album could be very personal, and the next one's, and people don't know when, and sometimes... Well, they couldn't possibly know.
Well, with that, I mean, when a writer writes a story, it's a story. When a singer sings a song, it's I. So, it's
right. But maybe
you're saying
it's the character singing in the first
exactly.
person.
No, it is
right.
It is. But I mean, you're listening to a person say these things to you, as opposed to you reading.
It's not the voice in your head as you're reading along.
It's this guy saying this shit to me.
Exactly. So Prince actually cared for, mentored, and wrote for a number of female artists, even the ones he wasn't. I mean, he was linked romantically to a lot of them. Jill Jones, Apollonia. Well, no, not Apollonia. Actually, Vanity. He was Apollonia. Actually, was married.
Was she?
Yeah, she was married when she did Purple Rain. But the Warner Brothers, no.
Yeah.
And they appeared together in places to make it look like they were.
Well, because it was a thing.
Right, of course. Well, that goes back to old Hollywood. It's like got to be seen with an eligible bachelor and that kind of thing. But he wrote stuff for Mavis Staples and Shaka Khan. I mean, she covered his song, but then he wrote albums of material for her and Patti LaBelle.
Yep.
And we talked about, George Clinton and
Sheena Easton.
Exactly. Sheena Easton.
I love Sheena Easton.
I do, but that just... Sheena Easton is kind of incongruous to all the...
completely.
I mean,
unto herself.
She started off as, as a pretty little princess like Olivia Newton-John did in the 70s. Yeah, exactly. It's like, and all of a sudden she's like...
Sugar Walls.
Yeah, then it goes to Sugar Walls like, what are you talking about?
Wait, what?
It's like, you think about it.
Yeah.
So, and of course some of his lyrics were laughably oversexed.
Yeah.
I mean, just so out there that I think he was just, having fun with it.
Absolutely.
I mean, especially Get Off. I mean, that's just, 23 positions in a one-night stand. Like, I've had a few of those. I didn't count, but I'm going to say it probably didn't get out of, the low teens. What's going on, Prince? Yeah, it's just, it's a thing. Now, on to developments. It has come out that Prince has no will.
Right.
That can be found. Now, a judge is saying, before we go and do anything, we're going to do a very exhaustive search to make sure there's no will.
Right.
But at present, it looks like he has no will. And there are 6 siblings that he had, both his parents have passed away. And I think only 1 or 2 of the 6 are actual full siblings that have the same mother and father as Prince did.
Okay.
The rest of them are the children of Prince's father. So they're his half brother, half sister. Mm-hmm. And because he left no will, if that turns out to be the case, they all get a bite out of Prince. Mm-hmm. Which, part of me just says, hey, that's on you, Prince. I mean, you didn't leave a will. I mean...
Yeah...
I mean, that's the way the law works. If you don't leave a will telling us what you want to do, then the state comes in and goes, who's all the people that could possibly be benefited by marriage or by blood?
Right. He
had no marriage, at the time. He had, 2 ex-wives, but no children. So it was only siblings. That's it. And that's all they could do. There's, they're not going to stand on the court steps and go, eeny, meeny, miny, mo, you get a bite, That's the way it works.
Right.
So on that, like, Prince, you probably should have did a...
Yeah.
Which brings me to something that really, really bothers me / makes me happy. I don't know. They drilled his vault.
Yes.
This is where there are billions of dollars of revenue of unreleased Prince material. Mm-hmm. There could be another Purple Fucking Rain in there for all we know. Who knows? In interviews, he has said, when asked about his vault, it's like, yeah, it'll come out at some point. Maybe it won't be me doing it, but, So it sounded like he was not against the stuff coming out. I think he was just so concerned with making new music. He didn't want to go back and worry about all this old shit that this, it's not where he was at the moment. So that gives me a little bit of hope, because the happiness that it gives me is like, wow, we might hear this stuff now. But man, when you start to curate somebody else's music, how do you collect these things together?
Yeah.
There needs to be somebody who's so intimately connected with Prince. And Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis have talked about being those people even before Prince died. They said, like, listen, man, you gotta, you need someone to come through and catalog and get this and put this together. And he's like, yeah, maybe. So he was open to it, which is okay, because, when I heard that they drilled his vault, that just, because nothing would make me more horrified. And after I died, someone, found my, my file of, half-written, full-written, some-written stuff and said, hey, let's put that out. I would die a second time.
Yep.
Because, I've talked about Harlan Ellison. He says, if I've written a story, it's on my typewriter, and I put the N, and I forgot to put the D, it's not finished, and it burns the second I die. Nothing comes out, no vault, no continued by somebody else. Yeah. It's done. Yep. If I didn't put it out there, I didn't want it out there to begin with, and it's done with. Apparently Prince was not quite that way about his vault stuff.
Yeah.
So I just hope, because the state is doing this, I really hope that there's somebody that's connected to Prince or to Paisley Park that's overseeing this, because I get to see some bureaucrat just, pulling out reels, boxing them up, and,
I don't think the artistic community would let that happen. I mean,
I hope not. And plus, I mean, some of this stuff was recorded on, tapes 20, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
You can't just throw them in a locker somewhere. I mean, climate controlled. Some of these tapes are going to have to be baked to get enough oil on the tapes for them not to flake off as soon as it goes through the machine. So I just... It touches a very raw nerve with me. Well, when someone's unpublished, unreleased, whatever stuff gets put out there, and even if he wasn't, against the music coming out, who knows if they're going to put songs together that were not part of a cohesive idea.
Yeah.
Or maybe none of them are. Maybe they're just all random songs that never made it onto an album because they didn't fit the idea at that point. Mm-hmm. So I just,
it's going to take a while. So
right, and this is something. I mean, if anything,
this will be going on for years.
Oh yeah. I mean, if anything came out of the vault this year, I would be very upset because, fucking A, man, let the man just be dead for a little bit and let us catch our breath before you start capitalizing. And that's the thing. How are they going to divide up the estate? There's money, there's assets. Maybe one of the siblings just wants money and be done with it. One wants to oversee Prince's legacy. Who knows? I mean, Jimi Hendrix's sister has pretty much... That's her job now.
Yeah.
She's the one that, wrested control from Columbia or whatever and has, really kept a tight leash on the stuff that Jimi Hendrix, the estate puts out. Yep. So maybe there'll be, I think his sister's name is Tyka. I think it's Tyka, I believe. And maybe she's going to be that person for Prince. Who knows?
We don't know.
But... as far as Prince's actual death, a few things that have come out. The chef at Paisley Park said that he had been sick and losing weight for some time. Mm-hmm. Now, whether that's due to an illness or because of drug use, and this is where everything's going. Apparently, Prince had painkillers, Percocet, on him when he died.
Right. But they also said he was in terrible pain.
Right. It's from what I think it's probably going to turn out is that he had massive hip and leg pain because he entertained the shit out of us for 20, 30 years, and it took a toll on his little body.
And he always wore high heels.
Oh, and he was any woman out there will know it's not, you don't walk into your house with high heels and keep them on. You get them off your feet as soon as you possibly can, because they kill your feet.
Yep.
And at 5'2", that's how tall Prince was. 5'2".
That's how big Courtney is.
Tiny.
Yeah.
Tiny little person.
Yes.
It took a toll on his body. My guess is that because he's a Jehovah's Witness and blood transfusions are not allowed, he did not get the hip surgery. And they started prescribing him pain medication, which we know is a slippery slope, and it's possible he became addicted to painkillers. Yep. Just, regular prescribed, totally legal, not, shooting heroin or any kind of bullshit like that. And it just got out of control. We want to think of Prince as, not even being close to human, but he totally was.
Yep.
He had to sleep, he had to shit and eat just like everybody else on the planet. What really broke my heart is that Paisley Park staff apparently the day before had called an emergency drug counselor to come out from Los Angeles. Uh-huh. The drug counselor arrived in Minneapolis the morning he died. Or basically his associate with the counselor was supposed to come later on that day because they said, you need to be here now. He goes, I can't clear anything until 2 the next day. I'll send my associate to kind of do the intake interview and get going.
By the time he got there.
And he was already dead. He arrived the morning that Prince died in the elevator. And that, oh God, that just, that hurts.
Yeah.
Because, one day earlier might have might have been able to do something, might have been able to recognize and admit him or do something. And lastly, that just come up recently, have you heard about this bullshit with Sinead O'Connor? Have you heard about this?
No.
She posted, I believe it was Twitter and later on Facebook, accusing Arsenio Hall of dealing drugs to Prince and also trying to dose her, slip her a Mickey, do something to her back in the 90s, I guess, at Eddie Murphy's house. And now Arsenio Hall is suing Sinead O'Connor for saying this kind of stuff.
Right.
And I'm not saying I have no opinion on Arsenio. I guess it's conceivable. But Sinead O'Connor has been a fucking mess for...
Well, she's bipolar. Like hardcore, for real, like medical bipolar.
Right, and a survivor of major abuse as a child.
Right.
So, but she was all witty, like, Arsenio, you best get to tidying your man cave. And I was just, I don't really think that, I don't really buy that.
Yeah.
But now that there's going to be a lawsuit, we'll get to the bottom of it.
Find out.
Oh, God. So on that cheerful note, good night, sweet prince. I don't know what else to say, man.
There's not much to say. I mean,
just...
the term legend is kicked around willy-nilly sometimes, and there are few, and we've lost several this year alone.
Yeah. I mean, we didn't do a podcast episode on Glenn Fry, but hey, man.
We could have.
Glenn fucking Fry.
Yeah.
The Eagles. You got some, Smuggler's Blues. He had some good stuff. Yeah. No, I would say yes, a legend, but there are different strata in legend.
Absolutely.
I mean, Bowie.
Yeah.
Legend.
Prince.
Glenn Fry. Legend.
Legend.
Yeah.
I mean, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
I know what you mean. No
It's
disrespect to
right.
him.
Great, did some good music, solid guy, did some great stuff. But Bowie influenced generations
Right.
outside of music with dress and thought and Prince.
Just life
Yeah.
style.
Unfortunately, Prince pretty much hung it up after Graffiti Bridge, and based on Graffiti Bridge, he made the right choice.
Yeah.
Because God, I've rewatched Purple Rain, Under the Cherry Moon, and the Sign of the Times concert film. I have not Graffiti Bridge, not because I don't even own it. It's that bad.
Yeah.
Bad film.
But Prince's music will never go away. It will be.
I hope this ushers a more of a return to Prince being played on the radio more often, and not just Purple Rain.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a masterpiece. It changed people's lives. I get it. I'm sick to fucking death of Purple Rain in the sense that there's so much other stuff that, in my opinion, is so much better.
Yeah.
And that's saying something, because Purple Rain is damn near a perfect record.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a goddamn masterpiece. It's his Thriller.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the point where he and the zeitgeist were at one and intersected at exactly the right time. Mm-hmm. That's Purple Rain. So, I don't know. I don't know what else. You got any final thoughts on Prince? I mean, this is, it's tough to close up about, to close out.
I mean,
this big a subject.
I think all we can say is